What day today? You should get trouble. Yeah.
You're good. That's mostly.
It's some photo and some. I never know what I will find. Oh, we see it. Evening.
Right here. But it doesn't tell us that.
Okay. 6 o'clock. I'll call a city council meeting, the September 18th city council meeting to order. Call the roll.
Abby Hansen. Here. John Hawkins.
Here.
Megan McFarland. Here. Matt McKinney.
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here. Call for motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance. The Republic. Indivisible. Item 1, petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in case of emergency, the city council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask city staff to research the matter or have the matter placed on the agenda for the future meeting. Anyone have anything? Okay. Item 2, minutes, claims, reports and licenses. The following items have been deemed non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, we consider it in its normal sequence on the agenda. I have item A as minutes of September 5. B is a resolution on payroll for period ending September 9 and paid on September 15. C is a resolution on bills and approve the fund list. D is the city manager reports for August. E is the police department reports for August. F is the fire department report for August. G is the Hamilton County Solid Waste Commission agenda packet for September 13. H is the Heart of Iowa Trust Fund agenda packet for September 14. I is recommend approval for issuance of beer and liquor licenses by the Iowa Department of Commerce for the following: 5-day Class C retail alcohol license, an outdoor service for Top of Iowa Lucky Wife drink trailer from Sway City, Iowa, to participate in the Webster City Chamber event, Ladies Night Out on 10/12/23. Class C retail alcohol license and outdoor service for American Legion Post 191 at 726 2nd Street. Class C retail alcohol license and outdoor service for Guppy's Biker Bar at 732 2nd Street. And that's it.
Move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Okay, pre-general agenda. Public hearing on proposal to consider the request to vacate a portion of 3rd Street right of way. It's not. The first reading of an ordinance providing for the vacation of the portion of Third Street, Lawn Hill Addition, Webster City, Iowa by the Code of Ordinances of Webster City, Iowa. Ariel?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this is just an item, the city has been approached by a developer in regards to a development at 505 Fair Avenue. This has been submitted through a formal request, and the location will be for 3rd Street West of Fair Avenue. This is for proposed development located at the northeast corner of Overpass Drive and Fair Avenue. And the vacation is coming in advance of the potential project that's being proposed, as the developer has contingencies to meet by the end of the month. This has been routed to all utility companies and also to internal staff and our contracted engineer. This also went before planning and zoning on September 11th, and they recommended to approve the ordinance. So city staff is just recommending the city council approves the first reading of the ordinance pertaining to the vacation of the city right of way on 3rd Street west of Fair Avenue.
Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
B is the second reading. That's what I was thinking. I was wondering. If I should look.
The back.
Go back up a minute. Do we have any written objections?
We received no written
Do
objection.
we have any oral objections? Somebody should get up and say something.
Well, we do have a representative from the developer, and not putting in a spot, but we met in the lobby. Right?
We don't want any oral objections.
So-
Really.
I guess, like, if you did have anything to add, not, you feel free, but I mean, obviously, it sounds like we're on a good path.
Yeah. I can speak.
If that's okay, Council.
My name is Travis Small. I'm the real estate manager for this part of Iowa. So thank you, Mayor and Council, and all the city members as well who have gotten us to this point. It's been a long time coming since we've been under contract. So we're glad to be here and get this road vacation tied up. Kind of to Ariel's point, it bumps out into our projected properties. So that's why we requested the vacation of that to help with our development. We're getting down to the nitty gritty as our contingencies are getting close. We're working through a few final city comments and engineer comments as well before we release those contingencies, and then we plan to get started on the store next spring, summer, as long as everything goes as planned. So look forward to have a second store in Webster City and appreciate the city and everyone who's been involved to get us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you just state what company or what?
Oh, yeah, Quick Start, Quick Trip out of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Same C-store owner as the one on the south side of town. So it'll look almost the exact same as that one. We've done a few improvements on the inside, so the inside might look a little bit different, but it'll look just about the exact same as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, right. That's why I looked at you. I thought, I have something more. So what do we have to? Oh, close the hearing.
Yeah.
And then we did everything else. So we're good. We don't have any of that for the second one. No, because it's not it's just a second reading.
Did we have a motion on the
Yep.
first reading?
Yep.
Okay. I think I realized that we didn't.
We did
Did you
call
have
at the end of it. I've said that. Okay, so B is a second reading of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa 2019 by adding section 50-120 entitled Solar Energy Systems to chapter 50, article 3, division 3 for the purpose of regulating the placement and use of solar energy systems in the city's zoning districts.
So this was an item that was presented to you on September 5th. The council held a public hearing and approved the first reading of the amended ordinance. So this is just the second reading of this ordinance, again pertaining to solar energy systems. Just want to state again, this is not for prohibiting solar energy systems, it's just adding conditions and protecting future land use. So city staff's just recommending the approval of the second reading for the amended ordinance and also recommending waiving the third ordinance or the third reading, sorry.
I get a lot of questions on this, owning a solar company, and this is very standard. I just want the community to know that it's very standard that mounting a ground mount array in a residential area is very rare. And this is good. This is actually healthy for solar to have an ordinance like this to better direct engineers and designers. So I'm getting a lot of questions on this, like, how's this affect, solar? Was it making it more expensive? And not really. I mean, the permitting fee technically went up, but it's for the right reasons. It's for us to get our arms around it. So I appreciate the city doing the work on this.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Call for motion.
Don't move.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Then we, did you want to waive the third reading?
I'll move to waive.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. And then we'll move to pass and adopt. All those in favor say aye. Okay, C is a resolution approving structural fire training agreement with property owner of 406 White Fox Road and authorizing me to execute said agreement. Evening, Chuck.
Mayor, Council, thank you for your time this evening. Back when I first came, we had several live fire trainings, and of course, COVID hit, and that really put a damper on that as far as some of our training options. And we definitely would like to get back to conducting some live fire training with the department on occasion, as it's really some of the best training that we can do. We try to mimic as much reality as possible under live fire conditions in a real structure. So extremely beneficial for all of our new members. We've had several new members come in since we've had the last one. So just seeking your approval to do that again.
Okay,
Move to approve.
Second.
thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
D is a resolution to approve the commitment of matching funds for an application for funding for the Iowa Finance Authority in support of the Heart of Iowa Regional Housing Trust Fund. So this is it's a good program. I mean, it's, yeah.
So this program was established in 2018. At that time, it only included Hamilton County and Webster County. But last year, they also included Wright, Pocahontas, Calhoun, and Humboldt. And this program is currently working with hundreds of low and moderate income families to correct different repairs such as roofs, water heaters, plumbing, electrical, etc. So as of August 2023, 6 projects have been completed in Webster City, totaling $91,708.36. An additional 19 of those applications are in the process, totaling a potential amount of $285,000 if they all receive the maximum amount of $15,000. The fiscal year of 2024, the trust is eligible for $413,770, which requires a match of $95,168, which would be allocated by each county. Hamilton County has committed up to $8,000 for that match for us, and then the city would need to contribute up to $8,000 to fulfill the match. This match comes from the LMI funds that are created from the residential tip that's set aside. So city staff's just recommending approval of a resolution authorizing up to $8,000 match for the fiscal year 2024.
It's a great return on our money, that's for sure. So, yeah. Okay, call for motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item E is a discussion of city green waste site, tree disposal site, wood mulch. What we've been doing, what everybody's been working on. Couple of weeks.
So as the council is well aware, and there's been several notices out on our social media page and website about some of the issues we're dealing with at the current greenway site related to the wood mulch pile and the tree waste. Want to kind of give it an overview of where we're at, what caused it, and kind of also pose some options for the council that staff needs guidance, both from a short-term and long-term perspective. And so we'll touch on those here at the end. So back on Sunday, September 3rd, the fire department and the public works crews were called out to smoldering out at the wood mulch pile. The picture on the right was the picture that was sent to the street department superintendent Brandon Barnifus, and that's what crews responded to. That wasn't the first call that day. Subsequently, throughout the rest of the afternoon, there was at least one more call. The fire department got called out for additional hot spots and smoldering that was occurring within the pile. The crews used heavy equipment to pull out the hot spots, or those spots that were smoldering, spread them out over an open area where the fire department would then douse them with water. And over the next several days, fire department, street department, and police department regularly checked in on the pile, and the fire department was called out. And in some evenings, when the smoldering or smoke was apparent and needed to be addressed. Fast forward to 6 days later to 5 days later to Friday, September 8th, we had a major smoldering event early in the morning. The wood mulch pile was clear that it was not cooling down. It was in some places, as we worked through the next few weeks, realized there's some sections that were actually getting hotter. Part of it was as the crews continued to remove and work the pile and remove portions of it to cool it down by dousing it. We were introducing more oxygen to the pile, which was further exacerbating areas that had not been, they had been oxygen depleted for several years in some cases. And so that was contributing to that. At that point, the strategy of just monitoring and maintaining the situation, we realized it just wasn't going to be adequate. It was also based on feedback we were receiving from other entities, communities, as well as other organizations, as solid waste agencies, as well as the University of Northern Iowa's solid waste reduction agency that provided some guidance in terms of how to address the situation, as well as just proper management of a green waste site with mulch piles like we have. The decision by that point in the afternoon was that we were going to have to break down the large mulch pile and break it down into smaller windrows so that we can douse it with water to cool it down, and then rearrange them into windrows that would be smaller and much more manageable. Some of the contributing factors that have led to this situation was the fact that just the large amount of waste that we had at the site. The pile itself that was smoldering was about a 5 years worth of accumulated wood mulch that had just been accumulated and piled on and compacted over the last several years. We also have large amounts, or significant amount, I would say, of unprocessed tree brush, logs, and stumps at the site currently. In order to save space, as I mentioned, the mulch pile it grew taller and wider in order to save on space. That compaction over time, as the organic material broke down, it depleted and ate up all the oxygen and the organic material over time. That just led to the situation we are now. The pile is too large, and proper management of a compost pile requires that it be regularly turned every so often. Ideally, when temperatures reach about 160 degrees internally, you're going to want to turn that compost pile in order to cool it down, as well as to introduce areas into that haven't been exposed to oxygen, as well as other materials. The hot and dry summer we've experienced certainly did not help the situation, but also the lack of variety of our recipe for the compost pile. The compost pile generally is made up of just all the wood chips that have been ground up from tree waste over time. And some of the guidance we received has been that we're going to want to have a combination of organic material, not just wood mulch, but also both brown and green organic materials such as leaves, grass clippings, and other things of that sort to help further provide the decomposition of that wood mulch pile. Here in this picture, you see that just the wood mulch pile is it's larger than the equipment we have available. Just goes to show you how tall and how large it was. And it's added to just the complexity as well as just the time and the resources that have gone into breaking down that wood mulch pile and really get our arms wrapped around the issue. The facility is regulated by a DNR. We did make initial reports of the smoldering to the DNR back when it first happened on September 3rd. We followed up with their field office thereafter. There were a couple different things we wanted to get clarified as well as to get approval for. One was granted approval to temporarily relocate the unprocessed tree brush. As we started looking at the existing tree waste pile, we knew we were not going to have adequate amount of space to really spread everything out. And so we started wanting to line up the ability to relocate some of the unprocessed tree brush and logs outside of the green waste site. And the closest location that would be suitable would be across the road behind the recycle bin by the wastewater treatment plant. There were a couple of considerations related to the floodplain. One was the proximity to the 100-year floodplain, as well as the area is within the 500-year floodplain. So wanted to confirm that the DNR was going to be okay with that. And we were, as long as we stay outside the 100-year floodplain. And also if there was any leachate that we would have to mitigate or account for, we would have to address that as well. If we were to place the composted material, including the wood mulch piles in another location, we would have to comply with all the facility regulations that are applicable. And so that was also something that we were looking at. We were looking at, and we fielded a number of questions about just burning the tree waste at the site. And so DNR referred us to the Iowa Code 567 that pertain to at least the city's ability as a local government entity to burn that site. And so quickly realized that it was going to be very restrictive to be able to do it at that site. One, the area has to be fenced and access controlled. The burning has to be occurred on a regularly scheduled basis and weather permitting in order to avoid any issues. The site has to be at least 1/4 mile from an inhabited building. Unless a written waiver could be obtained from all the inhabited residences within the area. I'll show you a map here, but we were within 1/10 of a mile from residential homes. And I think at last count, there was about 17 to 20 residential properties within that area that would have to be obtained waivers for if we were to burn on that site. There's other considerations with proximity to transmission electric lines, as well as the lack of available water hydrants in that area in the event that the situation does require it. Those are all factors that played into why we're not seeking to burn at that site. Here's a radius of just where the site is and the 1/4 mile radius from that. You can see just the number of homes that are within there, as well as the apartment complex directly to the south. There is an exemption to the burning requirements, and that is the use of an air curtain or air burner incinerator. This is a piece of equipment that has a fan, an air blower connected to it, and the air is blown into the bin and it recirculates the air internally. One, to increase the heat, as well as to keep the emissions of particles and smoke from fuming. As particles try to rise up from the bin, they're blown back into the fire, back into the heat and burned off. Almost similar to a catalytic converter in your car that burns off some of those gases and some of those contaminants. The piece of equipment is completely self-contained. They do come and roll off, just like you see in that picture up top. It has, like I mentioned, a diesel motor to operate a fan. What we've been able to research so far, the DNR has permitted some of these systems in the past. There's 2 that we're able to find. Those systems appear to have been a different style of a air curtain incinerator. At least in one, I was able to confirm that it wasn't a roll-off bin style like this. It was a trench burner, and a trench burner wouldn't really be ideal for the location that we're at now. So both the federal government does have a contract with this particular manufacturer, and that price is for one of their smaller units and what that would do. It would do roughly, based on the specifications, about 2 to 3 tons of material an hour to burn off. I did reach out to a community, the city of Monticello, Illinois. They had purchased one in 2021. I had reached out, but I haven't got a word back from their staff in terms of how well it's being used. But I can clearly see it on Google Earth, the location where it's at, along with this compost pile. This would essentially burn off all the tree waste, logs, and tree brush. Not entirely sure yet on the wood mulch itself, how effective that would be. That can be a question we're trying to research as well. Our understanding from the DNR was that this piece of equipment may not have the same requirements of having a quarter-mile separation from residential homes, but it would require an air quality permit to operate. I have tried to find other contractors that could be contracted with to perform the service, but I haven't been able to find one in the region thus far yet. The strategy and plan, at least to address the smoldering and hot temperature of the pile, one, the short-term objective was just to prevent a large fire. There were some communities after the torrential that experienced similar situation with large amounts of compost piles and wood chips that were ground up that had caught fire in recent years. And so we were trying to prevent a major incident where the compost pile and mulch pile was actually on fire and created a much dire situation. Part of it required eliminating the causes of the smoldering and occasional flames that did occur due to spontaneous combustion as oxygen reached some of these superheated areas. This required just breaking down the pile, as I mentioned, that involved the use of overtime staff operating outside normal hours on the weekends. We did rent a piece of equipment, an excavator, to help break down the pile. We also lined up contractors if necessary, but haven't had to use them as of yet. And we also, this past weekend, halted accepting any more tree waste, just as the windrolls were spread out on the site. We just quickly, and we knew it was going to happen, and we realized it confirmed it that we were going to run out of space to be able to manage any more waste coming in, at least in tree waste and stumps. So long-term objectives, one of the things we need to start looking at is just how to better manage that site. As I mentioned, the pile we're dealing with was an accumulation of over 5 years worth of tree waste that was ground up and had not been able to be disposed of or get off the site. And so we're gonna have to change, just if we're gonna continue to operate that way, we're gonna have to just change how we maintain those piles, those windrolls, in order to promote greater decomposition of those piles. Eventually they can be decomposed to the point where they're just a fine compost that can be used for gardening and farming. That's the direction we go. That is something that a number of communities in Iowa do. That they will work the piles until they are decomposed and then sell off or give away the composted material. Just briefly, part of the reason why the piles get so hot is that there are bacteria and organisms within the piles that break down the organic material. Ideally, anything below 135 is too cool, and then when you don't turn it, it also adds to just depleting the oxygen and slows down the decomposition process. That's kind of what we've been dealing with the past several years, just because of the size of the pile and the lack of being able to properly turn it. Roughly about 130 or between 140 and 155 is the ideal temperature where it really kind of breaks down in an efficient manner. The material, and anything above 160 is too hot. It starts burning off some of the organisms, it slows them down, and then over time that heat is just going to continue to rise, and then we end up with a situation we found ourselves in here this past month. I'm not going to get into the super technical. These are just some of the bacteria and organisms that are found and the degrees in which they favor to operate in. But like I said, the sweet spot in terms of the range, and it is a very fine range between about 130 and 150. That's ideally you want to keep the compost windrolls in. Anything above 160, they recommend that you start to turn it. In our situation, the temperature readings were increasing the more we dug into it. And this was on the southern end of the pile. You can see in this picture, I believe this was from roughly, I think about September 8th, that as we dug into it, it just was hot and was continuing to smolder. Here's a picture of just the temperature probes, the probe in the middle, and I think the one second to the right, or the last one reached temperatures of 200 degrees, and that's what the temperature probe maxes out at. So this kind of gives you an aerial overview. This is from the county assessor's page. You can kind of see on the site at some point, say roughly about 2018, there was a large section of windrows that we were able to dispose of by hauling out to a large hole out at Kendall Young Farm. I think it was roughly about $25,000 that we spent on hauling the material out there. Took about an entire week's worth of work with the street crews, other public works crews and contractors, just focusing on that week's time on hauling material out there. And so that provided some space. Here you see it's a fairly cleared area of the compost site. Within 3 months, you see how it's began to fill up. Look at this section here. This is where our brush pile is at. Here's our logs. This is our brush pile within 3 months. Our logs are a little bit bigger, but the brush pile is definitely getting larger. Fast forward to September 9th of this year. This was looking towards the south. This is what the brush site looked like, the compost site looked like. And so you see the size of the wood mulch that had been ground up and piled up. You see how they were spreading it out in order to douse with water and cool down, and just how close of proximity the brush pile was to the wood mulch. That was one of the concerns throughout this whole time, was avoiding the brush pile going up in flames. That would have required a large effort to contain and put out. And there were many times, at least definitely on the morning of the 9th, in which when we had the major flare up, actually last week, I should say, that there was guys were hauling out material in the early morning hours, and as they pulled out that hot material and the oxygen hit it, they were literally igniting in spontaneous combustion. You just saw a loader coming down this pathway, and the concern was trying to keep this from going up. You see the 12th, you kind of start seeing some of the operations of what we're doing, starting the windrow. You see guys with water hoses spraying it down and large equipment, just working the material to cool it down. By the 18th, this was yesterday, you can see how the site has been converted. We still have a large section of the pile that we're working through, but you can see how we've quickly filled up all the available areas of the Greenway site. This is a large factor as to why we've stopped, at least temporarily, receiving any additional tree waste. This section on the north side was empty about a week ago, and within 2 days, it was filled back up. And so,
because we're still accepting green waste.
we are accepting grass clippings, leaves, just tree waste where we are not. Some of the other impacts that this issue has caused, we have 2 payloaders that are disabled. We managed to limp by over the weekend with 1.5. One definitely went down on Saturday. The other one was I would say probably limping along. We were fortunate to have scrap processors let us borrow their loader. So that really saved us over the weekend. But some of the other things, originally the street department was going to haul some of the black soil from the Oxbow project. And so because they've been tied up with this issue and a couple of other projects that have popped up, we haven't been able to relocate that. So that project has been slowed down. We've also have not been able to circle back on some street and water main repairs with some water main issues we had a few weeks ago. Pothole patching has also been disrupted. And then we're coming up very close to winter months. Brandon's counting down the months on his fingers of how far we are until we start seeing cold temperatures and hopefully snow, or avoid snow, I should say, before it becomes an issue. We haven't been able, around this time, he generally tries to service the equipment, get them all geared up and prepared for the winter snow, winter weather, and we're behind. In the past, we've contracted out for grinding of the tree waste. Here's an estimate of what we spent since 2011, just shy of 214,000. This does not include the cost we incurred with getting rid of part of the wood mulch material out to Kendall Young Farm a couple years ago. As I mentioned, that was about 25,000. It also doesn't include the fuel or other staff time or resources used just to maintain the site. So that is just purely contracted costs for just grinding the material. Some considerations, as I mentioned, and certainly you don't have to decide all this at now, but I wanted to just kind of pose it out there, unless you want to work or go with one of these options that we'll touch on. But one of the options would be to just continue to restrict tree waste until we have site at that capacity.
Can I ask, how are we doing that right now? Are we, because we just shut down the tree.
Correct.
Right. So have we ever really restricted it? I mean, we have a fee for contractors, right? Like large contractors to be able to drop, but like when you say continue to restrict, you just mean like not allow.
Not correct.
Okay.
Not allow tree waste. So we have, I think when we first rolled this out yesterday and on Saturday, when we rolled it out, we had some contracts and residents trying to dispose of it. And so we made contact with them just to let them know we were having to shut down because we had a smoldering and potential fire issues and having to spread out and just don't have the capacity. We did contact all of the current contractors that have a tree surgeon disposal permit and let them know that we could not continue to accept tree waste. But yeah, that's certainly one option. The struggle with this one is we haven't defined a solution to create additional capacity. And so that's going to be the hurdle with this one is the unknown of how long it will take to free up space. The second option would be to relocate the compost windrows off site on private land. We can reach out to private property owners and then relocate that off site. The issue with that is we would have to conform to the DNR regulations for compost sites. We would also likely have to maintain those windrows, not knowing how long it will be that they remain on the site. So there'll have to be agreements in place with those property owners as well. We can continue not to accept tree waste and consider placing windrows on city-owned property adjacent to where the new wastewater treatment plant will go. That's the area south and southeast of the water tower off of Highway 20. In light of the wastewater treatment plants, we terminated the farm contract. So after February 2024, we would have access without any restrictions to that ground. We could look to relocate some of the windrows and mulch piles out to that farm ground. Again, same process, we would have to define it as a compost facility and do all the maintenance requirements and reporting requirements that the DNR would require. Another option could be to spread out the mulch around city-owned properties. We looked at a couple sites city-owned, including in Hospital Hill. We have 2 industrial parcels out in industrial park behind McMurray Hatchery and the cement plant. The problem is in spreading out the mulch on there, we would kill off the grass underneath, and over time, those lots would become just the weed beds as they grow back. Brandon was able to touch base with Petticord, Jay Petticord. That was the contractor that had done our tree grinding in the past. They had provided a proposal to haul away all of the tree waste, an estimated cost of about $250,000. They would just take everything and that would just free up the entire site. Another option that we explored and we're still waiting on is we reached out to the landfill out in Fort Dodge to see if they could use the mulch material as fill for their landfill cover. They're required to put a certain number of inches on top of the landfill cells each day. And so their engineer was looking at that. We have not heard back on where they're at on that decision. So, but those are at least what I would consider the short-term considerations. And obviously, we've been busy with just trying to address the immediate issue of the temperature as well as the smoldering conditions that, we haven't really fully thought out every single detail. And I'm sure there's some other options that are out there that we just haven't had the opportunity to consider fully. So I'll pause there before I move on to the next section and see if you have any questions or which of these options, unfortunately, none of them are ideal, but which ones are the ones that's really kind of are just absolutely not an option for us to consider, and which ones might be worth further exploring.
So is this completely out of the option, the burner, the cooking burner?
It is an option timetable. I did reach out to a vendor, a dealer this afternoon to try to find out what they had available. They were gonna call me back. They asked if it was something that we wanted to rent or whether we wanted to purchase entirely. And so, based on their availability, they really couldn't give me a timetable until tomorrow of what they're looking at. So,
Did they give you a price of how much it would to rent?
no, they did not. They had a couple different units available, and also different brands. So I explained that we would not be interested in the trench burner. It would probably be a bin of that sort. And so just depending on size and what availability they have and timetable for us. See if I got asked if it's something we want to do next week, next month. I said, I'm just trying to get some ballpark figures before moving forwards.
So what other option does, like, this is my naivety coming out, like, what other options do some of these tree contractors have to dispose of, you know, whatever is on their docket for the next couple of weeks? Because I know they're all very busy. So what other options in our tree site do they have? Because again, we've been kind of living large, having that site and having that amenity so readily available.
Options, if you're talking like for to
disposing
be
of-
able to take their stuff.
Or if we restrict it and keep it shut down, what was their plan B?
I honestly don't know what the contractor's options would be. They could have the options to store the logs on private farm ground. They can work with a private owner that would be far enough away from inhabited structures that would be willing to burn off, set a large bonfire and burn the material. But beyond that, it would really be a private matter for them to try to figure out. One option we could do if we wanted to, and that is go back to, let me show you Google Earth. The mode section here, this is inside the fence line of the wastewater plant. If my. The layer will pop up here shortly, but the area that we had requested the DNR to be able to temporarily store items is this area here. Now it would have to be temporary. So now I don't think we would come back to this at the end of the year. It would probably be something that we would have to store and then go to the process of moving over to the main section of the Greenway site next spring.
And it would be large branches, trees, like true, not mulched up.
Correct.
Stuff. So
Yeah, it'd be the
no,
tree brush.
no threat of
Right.
fire.
Yeah.
Very little.
The only downside with this, and this is depending on winter weather, this is also the site where the street department stores their snowplows. So if we want to use the site, we would have to start figuring out how much space we can allocate or look at other locations to dump our snowplows in winter.
Well, could we put our snow piles on top of the smoldering piles? Put the trees up there.
That would be ideal, but I mean,
Swap.
yeah.
Because again, I'd hate, I'm assuming, I mean, I don't handle large trees, but you know, a lot of the contractors that do, I'm assuming this is kind of their busy season going into the fall. I'm guessing, I mean, that's when I've had trees removed, so. I think short term, we gotta find a way to work with these contractors. I mean, we have several in town. I think some even come from out of town, but like, how many are on this contractor list?
6.
6 is okay.
I'm not in favor of moving what we have to that site and then having to remove it. I mean, we're just spending labor constantly to move it around. Maybe we could look at something where would they allow us to put one of those burners on that site and burn everything new coming in?
I don't know what to put in this, but definitely within this area, we can look at putting something
Yeah,
in that area.
Well,
I like the idea of the burner.
but wait a minute. So if we're just handling new stuff coming in and like the stuff that's in threat of combustion is old stuff and stuff that's mulched, correct? Okay, so we just don't mulch it. Right? So is there a place we can still
Put some new
stage
stuff.
that. Yeah, non-mulch stuff that we'll just have to determine what we're gonna do with it next year. On the existing site.
You're gonna be pretty tight. Let me show you.
Like even like what's, and again, Brandon, I'm not like hacking up your shop here. So they're like, no, we use that little chunk of grass there between the old shop and the new shop, just to the north. Kind of where the water fill station is.
Yeah, this is what it looks like as of yesterday or actually this morning. So this spot here, there's still about a little less than half of the pile. This area here will get filled in with windrows.
Yeah.
And possibly even this area. This is where we've been, I guess our staging area where we've been laying out and hosing down the mulch as they spread it out and then piling onto windrows. So it is really tight.
Well, it's gonna get tighter too in the fall, because all that green stuff, you normally just push back into a heap, right? As people drop leaves off and grass with them.
Yeah.
And with those windrows there, isn't there like kind of a cliff? Is there somewhat of like a natural like drop down in there, like almost like a?
North side of the file.
Right here.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean,
If you're looking for just a location that contractors, if you want to open it back up for contractors and residents to bring their brush pile. The area by the wastewater plant and the Boone River is going to be the best bet. At least within close proximity. We don't want to go too far away or look at another site just because all of his machinery and equipment is right there at the street shed.
no,
So
I agree.
that'd be the most ideal situation. We looked at possibly even this area here, but he has some underground water mains and so we don't want to run the danger of operating the heavy equipment and grading it or scraping it at some point.
Yeah, ideally, short term, we allow trees to be dropped off still in one fashion or another. I mean, it's really going to hinder the fall season for a lot of the contractors. And if it turns into an issue where we're actually limiting leaf removal because of the space we're taking up with the existing site, making these windrows, then it's going to affect the residents that just want to drop off a couple bins of leaves. That's be a larger impact.
The one question or issue, whether it is an issue or not for council, but at least there's with the contractors, we don't check, we don't regulate. So, there have been reports both of residents out in the county, ran into one Sunday. The code said this was going to be just for city residents but there's no way to regulate. And so,
You mean like out of county contractors?
a city.
Out of city.
So essentially the Greenway site was just to be for city residents.
And city contractors.
City that are pulling. It's not for all of them together.
The problem is though that the only answer to this really is to get the mulch out of. So without hauling it away, getting it out of there, then we're really not solving anything. So, unfortunately, the best option is probably to have the guy haul all that stuff off and get rid of it.
And they just start clean.
And then, start cleaning, and then we come up with an idea where we don't.
Can we
Get as
know
much
how
money.
much it'll cost to rent?
Then when we burn it, yes. Oh,
I just was gonna say, can we see how much it'll cost to rent or buy one of those curtain burners?
but that won't burn off the mulch. That'll only burn the trees.
Oh, I thought that you said that they weren't sure.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd had an answer to that. I mean, to me, that's a good thing to know. And in that 250,000, is that to haul everything, including the stumps, the brush, everything?
That's correct, right, Brandon?
Yes, Jerry.
What I had was, we have some some trails within the park system that are grass. Couldn't you put that, mulch on those trails?
The trouble is the mulch is it's not small mulch. It's,
But it's not stuff that you're gonna trip on. And
well, it is because, there's sticks in there this long. It's not, because I was at a park in Fort Dodge on the weekend and it's like, oh, they got mulch all over the park. Well, it's down little tips. Well, we don't pay that sort of money to have it brought down that size. So we have stuff in there that's this long.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why I wonder if we can get an answer, can you burn it? I mean, if even part of it can be burned, 250 grand is a lot of money to haul it away if you can buy a brand new one of those for 150.
But how much money?
But it's gonna take you a year to burn.
And how
No,
much-
I get it. I
How
get
much
it.
diesel we gotta burn to?
And
No,
a guy,
people to dump it. I know, I get that.
That's true. But then if we buy it, then we'll have it.
and then you've got, and you gotta pay a guy to sit there and feed it all day.
So the reason why there's only two of them in the Midwest.
No,
No, that was.
it was in Iowa. There's a lot
That
more.
was
in
in
there.
Iowa,
Oh,
yeah.
like I said, there's two, one in Illinois and one in Iowa.
No, the newest
No,
one
they-
that was.
So- Well, let me ask this. I mean, why is this issue happening now? I mean, is it just because we've actually gotten more mulch than years past? Because we've had this mulch pile for years. Why is it, what's the purpose?
Probably.
The perfect storm of the weather just making the pile burn is what's brought it ahead, but unfortunately. In 2018, we managed to get rid of a huge pile of it and get the pile down, so we sort of put it off for a while, and of course Brandon's been.
Starting from scratch.
He's been making the mountain taller, so that.
But it's probably getting bigger out there more than you've ever seen.
It's the biggest I've ever.
I mean, we've made, how many years has that site been out there?
It's about 2000.
Yeah,
20 years.
Yeah,
so you made it 14 years before you had to get rid of it, and now we're at 5 years.
City decided to ban burning leaves and
Mhm.
leaves, but they had to provide a place for the citizens to put their leaves and branches.
Yeah.
And that's why that.
so you think if we go back to letting everybody burn their stuff in town, then we wouldn't have. Exactly, it's not gonna solve the problem, no.
You'd be surprised not the ash trees.
Well, you look how many trees there are died in town this year. I mean, there's a lot more coming in. So,
A lot of trees came down. There's some factors.
And in years past, we've only had maybe 2 or 3, 4 at the most tree surgeons that took out their licenses and paid their permit fee. This year, like Daniel said, we have 6 or 7. I mean, they're not just from Webster City, they're Fort Dodge, Eagle Grove, Boone, I think are 3 that are coming because of the need. With the ash trees and.
Well, with that need, then, like I see in your next slide, not jump ahead, but like raising that fee for that contract. But if there's only 6 of them, it's gonna hard to offset $200 some $1,000, so there's really not a dent we can put in with that.
I guess,
Fenced in area, we can take it to burn.
well, it's
For
not
the-
close,
for the
not close to where machinery is anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like, well. You're just talking residential homes. Right?
The rule was inhabited structures, so. Yes,
I got
but I don't know if they count whether.
Could we bring some over to the controlled burn the fire department's doing? Just kind of keep it going for a couple of days.
Jerry has a question.
Yes, Jay.
I know you're talking about putting the wastewater treatment plant on something over 20. Can you take it out there that far enough out to where you can burn it before you have that?
It is, the only thing we'd have to check with the DNR is that fencing and access requirement. And so,
Well, you
yeah,
That's what I mean.
as
The trouble is that the 250 grand gets rid of the mulch part of it. And that stuff's not.
Don't hurt. Hurt.
How much would it
Yeah,
cost?
well,
to get transfer over there?
They're gonna take a lot more to burn the mulch than it will to burn the trees, but.
Yeah, and Brandon and I talked about that too, and Daniel about that's one bad windstorm away from 20 or 17 being an issue too out there. It's not really a great site for burning.
We saw that a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not very many good options.
I agree with the mayor, though. I think we probably have to get rid of the mulch, just get it out of there, start fresh, and obviously be a little more selective or I don't know. Economically aware of what it's gonna cost in the next 5 or 10 years to probably do this again. How we build that up,
Well,
it's not gonna be through permits.
if you come up with a way, like if we spend the money and if burning of it works. And with this machine, then potentially you could make your money back over the next so many years with the money we collect. But because we collect about 100,000 a year, isn't it? So to do this, so between this and the city cleanup, or whatever, but I mean, it's all more than one thing in it, but
Yeah.
so it's, there is money that comes in for this, but obviously we haven't put it aside to do this, so we've already spent it.
Yeah, some of the long-term implications, and as I kind of mentioned, we'll have to just evaluate how we continue once we create the capacity. As when resuming accepting tree waste, once capacity is available with no restrictions. As I mentioned, that's pretty much what we were doing up to this point. And so as I mentioned, the city code says the green waste site disposal is only for Webster City residents. But we currently have no way to enforce this. Site's not fenced. We don't check who's dropping off, where they come from. There's no way of determining whether the contractors, if all their jobs are just purely from within the city of Webster City, or they're doing stuff outside the limits out in the county or in other communities. There's just no way to regulate that. We can option to just increase fee for the tree surgeons. As I mentioned, right now, they're only paying $500 per year. Looking back at the code, it does also spell out conditions for insurance requirements, but those conditions were set initially back in '96. And I know our insurance company would probably have higher limits based off of today. Option 3 is to fence the greenway site. You can hire part-time personnel to screen loads to make sure where they're coming in and what's being brought in. This is fairly common in other Iowa communities and landfills. Option 4 is to purchase a turner. This will just be a machine that would rotate the composted windrows. And this may, regardless, this is probably going to be needed in order to better process what we have and to further promote the decomposition of those windrows so that they can be a much finer or usable material we can give away or sell off, whichever option is available. We can restrict greenway site to just residents and exclude contractors, but judging by some of the comments, I don't know if that's an option you want to consider. We can also restrict the size of tree waste to only accept no greater than, say, 6 to 8 inches or 6 to 8 feet long. That will just restrict the size of some of those large trunks. But that's something that's common in other cities as well, but certainly just an option we can consider. Others have implemented dumping fees, both on residential and commercial contractors, whether that be by the truckload and semi-load, whichever the case will be. There's a couple different options of examples that are out there. And the third option, or the last option, is really just relocating the entire greenway site elsewhere and getting away from the residential area and having more space and availability. But obviously the cost and being able to maintain that is a factor. So these are just kind of options that we just wanted to kind of generate, just to give you some ideas of what we may be looking at in conjunction with some of the short-term options that the council can consider.
We have a location in mind.
We do not.
Okay.
You would probably look at first at what grounds the city has. The biggest ground is going to be out by the wastewater treatment plant, if we wanted to. That is something fairly common. Marshalltown has their dump site right next to the wastewater treatment plant as well. So it's fairly common in other areas. But we don't have a specific site.
Okay.
All right, so you're not after any.
Not unless you want to move forward with Betty Cord's proposal, but obviously I think it's helpful just so that we know what direction, or we can narrow down which options so that we can focus our efforts on. Otherwise, we have such a wide array of things that we can really look at or consider.
I would like an option to have a tree dump. I mean, some contractors.
A temporary?
Yeah, temporary tree unload site so that contractors can still continue as we iron this out.
And I'm for that, but we also have to figure out what we're gonna do with what we have. I mean, if we are at a point where we're putting it where we don't want it and we're gonna have to move it. We may have to consider continuing to restrict it until we have a good option. Not that I want to do that, but
We regulate it at all in the meantime?
Not effectively.
I don't know that regulating it's gonna save you enough, though. If you put a man in there and start paying the
Right.
wages for a guy to be there on the weekends and during the week or whatever, is it really gonna save you enough? If you really got that many people abusing the system, that it's worthwhile doing it. I
Well,
don't,
you're almost gonna have to fence it in because people go there in the evenings and drop off too and.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to be locked at night.
Did it
and
used
stuff.
to
I mean,
be?
that's the way it is in Fort Dodge and places. I mean, they lock it. You can only go there in certain
Only
hours.
open
you
during
can't.
certain hours.
And I think
And that's fair. but-
Fort Dodge also does it seasonally, once
Mhm.
once the leaves are been picked up off, their sites close down. That's also common in other cities as well.
do we have any other vendors that we can get proposals from? We have one quote from one vendor.
Yeah, like I mentioned, our focus has been trying to control the situation, so this was just one that we had reached out just because we were trying to figure out what to do but we can certainly reach back out.
I
and
would prefer before we spend $250,000.
We want to see.
Getting other quotes.
See if Fort Dodge can take it. One, if the landfill over there can take it, and then I guess see if anyone that does their hauling or whatever, if there's another person who wants to fight to haul it there, but before we spend a big amount.
So we'll come back with a little more information, both, it sounds like at least a temporary location to reopen up for contractors. I know Abby had mentioned she wanted to learn more about the burner to see what options and what its capabilities could be.
Even if that's just for the long term.
Sure.
I think the burner is probably something worth looking at, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll reach out back to other contractors and vendors to see what are some other possible options. I didn't hear much in terms of relocating the compost or offsite to other properties, so we'll probably won't focus on that at least in the immediate future. Just stick on those 3 areas for now. That's okay with everyone?
I think if you're gonna start hauling it, you might just haul it out and be done with it, but if you're gonna double handle everything, it's just. All you're doing is moving a problem from one place to another, so.
The long-term considerations we'll leave for a future meeting, but like I said, just any other ideas you want us to kind of focus on or come up with? Well.
Anybody else out there thinks about it, you can always get in touch with us. If you got a broad idea for it. Okay. So the item F is a discussion on the draft agreement with Hamilton County for the Wilsonboro Historic Park.
Need a minute to get a hold of Doug Herman.
For calling with Dallas BC on the business hours. Please hold a moment.
Hello, Doug, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right, Doug, I have you on speakerphone with the council and the public.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
All right, so this is an item the council has discussed in the past, and I know a few earlier in the summer. The mayor had been in touch with the county agent Jerry Cloberdance to talk about how best to move forward with it. Doug has prepared this draft agreement that kind of provides a framework for us to work in if it's something that the council still wants to move forward with. There are a number of questions that still need to be addressed and some of the specifics, but this just was the framework that Doug had drafted. And so I'll let Doug kind of go over it and discuss some of the high points, and it'd be something to determine if the council wants to move forward with, and then how best to proceed with defining some of those key details that still remain to be determined. So Doug, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you. But as Daniel indicated, I think the goal was to try to come up with a new plan to oversee and manage the Wilson Brewer Park in concert with the county, and also to do so in a way that might set it up in a manner that would make folks feel more comfortable making donations or contributions to the park. My recollection is there was one party in particular that was considering a sizable donation, but kind of a condition of that donation was to have the park overseen by an elected board or elected commission. So that was kind of part of my initial understanding of where we're headed with this. So this 2080 agreement, which is allowed, the reason it's called 2080 is chapter 2080 of the code, allows municipalities to set up agreements between each other or cities and nonprofits. And in this case, it's an agreement between the city and the county would be the members. We've identified the purpose and the goal of this relationship to be the long-term sustainability of Wilson Park. Trying to identify them what the responsibilities of the city and the county would be as members, and then to set up a separate board to oversee and operate the entity. When you do a 2080 agreement, you don't have to set up a separate administrative entity. The members can just kind of manage and oversee whatever it is that's the subject of the 2080. But in this case, again, because it seems as if that's one donor, and maybe other donors would feel more comfortable supporting this if there was in fact that separate administrative entity overseeing the park. That's the way we're headed at this point. The agreement is perpetual unless terminated by the parties. There's some language that provides how termination would occur, requiring a 2/3 vote of each body, but one body or the other can withdraw without the permission of the other body. And there's some language also speaking to winding up the affairs of the entity should it terminate. We can't, as we discussed, I believe, when I was at your meeting this last winter, it's not legally permissible to enter into an agreement that is non-terminable or that must require permission of both sides to terminate. There has to be some flexibility to terminate the agreement if either governing board would want to do so, and that's how it's written. We talk about distribution of assets in the event of termination. Assets will be distributed to the city because the city owns most of the assets, or not all of the assets. I think there is some, as I understand, maybe some county property involved too that we need to address yet in that situation. So that might be an open question there. The governing body is set up right now to be a 5-member board. No more than 2 members who could reside outside the city limits. So more than, you could have 1 or you could have 2, but no more than 2. And all of the members would have to be either residents of Webster City or Hamilton County. It's currently set up that the initial board would be appointed person. The reason being, it's going to take a little doing to get an election scheduled and set up and actually have elections. And my opinion, it would make sense to at least get off the ground with some people who are appointed who have some background and knowledge of Wilson Brewer Park to get things set up and organized. Now, those same people could run for election and get elected. And the elections would happen pretty quick. The first election we held is the first regular election following the passage of 12 months from the approval of the agreement. And there's some language in here that speaks to how those positions would then, who would be up for election that time and who would be up at the next election 2 years down the road. But it'd be about a 2 to 3 year window before the body would be entirely elected. 4-year terms for the elected officials. governing board vacancies, how we would handle that, referring to an Iowa Code section, similar to if a vacancy would happen on the city council, that would be the procedures followed. Voting procedures for the governing board members are set out. And board officers are identified with chair, vice chair, secretary, or secretary designee to keep minutes. Speaks the powers of the governing board. They can make bylaws and rules and regulations for the management of the commission, oversee and direct personnel. In theory, if they are successful, if this gets set up in the commission, overseen by the board, is successful in obtaining donations or other monies put in trust to help cover the expenses of the park. In theory, they could hire their own employees and really take this over with just the kind of the oversight of the members of this agreement being the city and the county. That would be what I call the perfect world scenario. So if they have the money and the ability to do so, they can hire and direct their own personnel to do what's needed to make this, to run the park and oversee the park. They can appoint committees, standing or temporary committees to assist them. Open meetings, public records laws would apply to their operations. There's some language about publication of minutes. Obligations of members. Some of this is kind of, I don't say boilerplate, but legal language that really doesn't need a lot of review probably tonight. Staff, employees, and volunteers, they would determine what they need as far as staffing needs, and again, would be responsible for hiring and determining the compensation of those folks. Again, all of that being subject to them having the financial wherewithal to do that. You know, hopefully they could establish also a pool of volunteers to help with needs. I'm jumping now, I'm into Article 7, Commission Finances. And the language right now reads that the members, the city and the county, would agree to contribute to the budget and operations of the commission on a case-by-case request basis, with neither city or county guaranteeing or agreeing to make any financial contributions at all. City of Webster City does agree, however, to continue to make some in-kind contributions, going to maintain the grounds of the park, performing snow removal on the sidewalks, streets, and roadways. Continue to provide property casualty and general liability insurance for the park and improvements. Provide water, sewer, electric, and natural gas service to the park, consistent with current services provided. Subject to an annual cost adjustment to be determined in the sole discretion of the city. When it comes on the utility front, there are, some thought if there's additional displays, additional buildings or other things put online that would cause a significant increase in water, sewer, electric, or natural gas. The city would have the ability to say, we're not paying for all of that. So that's kind of the commitment of the city under this agreement, as far as what you would continue to do for the park. Hamilton County, I built into this agreement saying, here's what they're going to contribute. I do know the board has reviewed this to some extent, because they made some comments that I've addressed in here at this point. But when they reviewed it and sent it back, that was left blank. So my read of that, at least at the moment, is Hamilton County isn't committing to do anything on a regularly occurring basis. Maybe they would consider some regularly occurring investment, whether in kind or otherwise, but if they are, or if they will, they didn't indicate that so far. Audit and budget, the commission would make their books and accounts available either to the city auditor or the county auditor as being audited. Commission budget would be presented to the city council and the board for review. Not for approval, but for review, questions, and information. Speaks to amendments to this agreement. So the agreement between the city and the county would require a 2/3 vote of the governing board. Entire agreement, real estate. The city shall continue to own all the real estate that makes up the park, described in one exhibit. The county would own all real estate being part of the park, described in a second exhibit. So there's some blanks here because we need to include legal descriptions. If we get to that point where it looks like we're going to have an agreement that both sides can agree with, we can fill in some of those blanks. Also, with regard to improvements, so non-real estate, things that are at the park, maybe kept in buildings or otherwise. My understanding is almost all of those are owned by the city right now. Those will continue to be owned by the city to the extent there are items like that owned by the county. They would continue to own those, and we try to break those out in some fashion in exhibits as well. So I know I want to do that really quick, but the long and short of it is that this is an agreement between the city and the county whereby a commission would be created, originally appointed, then subject to election, with their primary role being to oversee the park, with the goal being that moving forward, they would be financially able to stand on their own 2 feet and kind of take care of the needs of the park moving forward, subject to some either financial or in-kind investment of the city or the county to the extent that can be agreed to in this agreement. Of course, the commission can always come to the county or the city annually and say, this is our proposed budget. This is a shortfall, and here's some things we'd like to do. And we're requesting some money from the city and or the county to help make these things happen. This agreement puts you under no obligation to make those financial commitments. Would allow you to make those decisions on a year-by-year basis or a case-by-case basis. And again, either party, county or city, could terminate this at any time, subject to the winding up provisions of this 2080 agreement. What questions or comments do you have for me or for Daniel possibly? They're to where this currently stands, what next steps might be.
Well, I guess I'd have a comment that one of the things that I was hoping for with this agreement, I think, is addressed in that the city and county isn't obligated to a certain amount every year. This commission would budget and make requests to the city or county. From my standpoint, from what I've read, it sounds like a good agreement. I'd be curious on how the county feels, if they had any other suggestions on wording changes or anything else.
I can address this 28B as a draft.
Mhm.
And I was under the understanding that each side would come back and say, this is what we think needs to be done. That's what we do. And then our county attorney looking over the highlighted parts on there was from our county attorney. We would love to sit down and talk about what we can do and what we can't do. But this agreement right now, there is just a draft. I mean, it was a starting point to sit down and talk and figure out, is there a way that we can come up with a solution? I think there's a way that the county would be able to assist with the operations of the park for a certain number of years until the benefactors had their funds in place that was. And that's the whole idea behind this, is that the city or the county doesn't have to support this, that it's going to be self-sufficient. So I think there's a lot of room to talk, sit down and try to work through these issues, and the county is more than willing to sit down and discuss these issues and try to work through it to make this happen. You guys need to decide if you want to do so.
Well, from my perspective, I would like to move forward. My curiosity is whether there were any sections that were absolutely something that the county said, because I didn't see anything that obligated the city or the county financially to much at all. And that's why I'm curious if is there red flags in the way it's written at this point from the county standpoint.
When you talk to the attorneys, there's always red flags. I think that there's nothing in here that we can't work through to try to get it to
Okay, that's
a workable solution.
We'd have to have a joint meeting.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was getting.
thank you.
So are we gonna move forward to have a meeting with the county now? What's
I would like to.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the whole hang up with a lot of the discussions 6 months ago. Is like, okay, who's holding the check or who's obligated for what? And now that we have a draft to start, bending corners on pages and circling stuff, I'm good moving forward.
Jerry, we had a work session set for the 17th of October. And
I've got
it's been
canceled.
cancelled. So we actually had all committed to doing something on the 17th of October. And I realize that's short notice, but that's something that
We had.
yeah, that's the night for that. Yeah.
Check with.
Yeah. I realize.
Can you do that and then let me know? And then,
I'll follow up with Doug on his availability for that day.
Yeah.
Doug, did you catch all that?
Yeah. There to think about.
Mhm.
If when you're discussing terms of the county and how this might work, I think we need to start thinking about what a start date might be, how this kicks off with this new commission. And to the extent it might be necessary, but they have kind of startup cash demand. Because the agreement does not put any kind of obligation on the city or the county, but if we set up this new commission and expect them to oversee it and start doing some things, how do they start? As far as, what are their responsibilities going to be as far as paying bills, hiring staff, doing things of that nature? And where is that, what I'll call startup money, going to come from? Would they have some donors right out of the gate or not? And maybe the city and the county would potentially talk about, helping create a startup fund as one of the options.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave.
What time on the 17th?
What day?
5:30 or 6, whichever. Does that 5:30 work for everybody?
What day is it? Is it a Monday?
Tuesday.
Seems like it should be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Did anyone else want to anything on it? Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Let us know, Jerry, and we can, yeah, and then we can work it whenever if it's going to be different. So we'll see what we got to do. Okay, so number 4 is city attorney update.
4 houses have been started out in Burr Creek. If you guys have drove out there at all, I know we got a lot of questions from people on what's going on out there. So 4 have been started. We just sold another lot. That they're gonna start building on eventually out there too. So stuff's moving out there finally. And then we've just been working on all these daycare documents, and we've got those all done and everything's been recorded, Megan, for your information, so you can report to your board too. So all's lined up there. Nuisance cases like crazy right now still, so nonstop.
Okay. And item 5 is the work session on AMI managed metering infrastructure project.
You guys want?
Water and electric meter replacement. We'll take a couple of minute break. What time will you want to leave?
Quarter 7.
To leave it at 8.
I have forgot.
Yeah, it's not pretty exciting.
Oh, that.
Eight.
No.
Yeah.
That much.
Get it.
That's fine.
Certain acts of mercy.
Are you?
Okay, she's gonna start it.
Beatty. Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you guys for being here today. We're gonna be going over the advanced metering infrastructure projects that you guys approved recently. We do have Dan here from Municipal Supply, who is our contractor that we have an agreement with.
Is it on?
We have a paperwork.
Try it again.
Yep.
There we go. So here's a brief presentation outline. I'm gonna go over just the brief overview of the project. And then I'll show you our part of the abilities. We'll go through, I'm updating you on all the different components of this project. It's supposed to point in.
I was working earlier.
It's not going.
Battery?
Maybe it's like your phone. Hold your tongue out while you're pointing it.
All right, just tell me where to point.
Okay, next slide. So what is AMI? It's basically an integrated system of equipment and then communications and information management system. So there is some software tied to this. But basically, there's a device that we put up on our towers to communicate throughout the whole community. There will be smart meters installed throughout the city, and those will have communication devices that get back to the tower, and then it all ends up in the utility office on some software platform that generates our different utility bills and reports. Next slide. So we are the owner. We recently entered into a contract with Municipal Supply, and they have subcontractors that are also part of the team. They have Census, which is the one that is providing the census analytics software. They are providing electric and water meters. And then we also have HydroCorp, which is doing the water meter installation throughout the community. We have our electric department. They'll be doing all of the electric meter swap outs. And then we do have fiber installation with a third party, his name is Russ Skinner. So he's going to be helping us set up that fiber line to our water tower so that we have a backup plan to communicate all of our data to our utility office. All right.
Because you have that open world.
Probably.
Okay, so as you guys can see, this project is taking a lot of different departments and cross collaboration. We do have our central hub is Deidre Nerlin. She's kind of our project coordinator that takes care of all the communication between contractor and all the different departments and what's going on. So she kind of keeps our file together so that we all have the information. She's also coordinating public outreach and education. And then we have Ariel from planning who's helping out with the financial assistance programs. Dodie Wolfgram, our finance director, is in charge of the billing software integration. And then there's a partnership between Dodie, myself, and Ariel on updating the water service rules with input from several of the staff members who do the operations. The infrastructure installation is a coordination between Municipal Supply, our electric department, and our IT department. And then the meter installations will be HydroCorp, Municipal Supply, our electric utility department, and then logistics of that, and the meter readers will be helping with any locate needs or any needs associated with curb stop shutoffs as well. Some of the supportive needs have also included our administrative services department. So we are generating some staff ID badges so that everybody knows that whoever is showing up to your house is with the city. And we are requesting that the contractor have badges as well. Mapping GIS and the water line inventory that will be conducted by the environmental and GIS staff that we have. And then we are looking to get an on-call contractor on staff
So on retainer, so that if anybody runs into any immediate issues in their homes, we can utilize them for that. And then, once we pull all of the old meters out, we will be recycling them, so, our water plant supervisor and our supervisor will be helping. So I'm gonna hand it over to Adam, he's gonna give you guys an update on the infrastructure installation.
Well. So yeah, this has been a very, very long process. I know we first started looking into AMI metering back in 2012. But as far as this project here, the infrastructure is basically already in place. The two antennas have been placed at one at the Hy-Vee water tower and the other one at the Highway 20 water tower. Fiber has been installed to both locations. And as of Friday, I believe of last week, the contractor will be there the 27th of this month to go live with the fiber. So the line department had installed 1,200 feet of fiber boarded in through Lions Park to the Hy-Vee water tower. Fiber was already installed at Highway 20. Touch base with that. Spectrum Advantage, Russ Skinner will be doing the splicing and that kind of stuff. Kirby from the city's IT ordered all the parts, and I think we are good to go as far as having all the equipment ready to go for when Russell does show up on the 27th, and we'll be able to go right from there. So basically, so this is the electric meter and then the water meter there, but once they're installed, they will be going to the water tower, one of the water towers, and then that signal will bounce off and go to City Hall, and they'll be able to get up-to-date reading and all that stuff.
Just keep going.
I knew exactly what he meant.
Hey, tag team here, it's my turn. All right, so the billing software, so each installation team, one thing we're gonna have pairs of, for the electric side anyway. They'll have an Excel spreadsheet, which looks like the one at the bottom, that they can put in the information that we need, which is the ones that are blank. Then we have a program called My Excel that was developed by Civic. So it's unique to Civic customers, which I've used for 11 to 12 years. And those are familiar with Excel, we would just highlight all of that information. We just tell the computer we want the headings and push a button, and it dumps into our software. I mean, it's great. So. Okay, so we plan to alternate meter routes so that both meter readers will continue to have approximately the same number of meters to read each month. As well as we would like to have it so I don't know if we can get a whole route changed out within a month. I guess we'll find out. So if we cannot, I wanted to, as soon as we were done reading for a month, have the installation team go to that route and begin. So that gives them 3 weeks to install as many as they can in case we have to go back in and manually read those again, so that the customers are still not getting these huge gaps. And of course, the ones that are the new ones, we can grab whatever date we want to for billing. So it does go live. This is a big one. Due to the age of our current meters, we have been told that the change out very well could increase bills, like the first few months that people might see that. Meters typically slow down, which is going to be in the favor of the customer. It's not going to, register as much as used. These will. it would be any new meter, not just the AMI. So you hear grumbling on that. Unfortunately, that's why. And then we were also talked about, I know, like when we were talking to PFM, I don't know if you guys remember, like trying to convert cubic feet to gallons and whatnot. So we did order the meters to measure in gallons. However, software support said that it would work best if we change them all out and then make the whole switch to gallons instead of doing both. So they said we just need to put a multiplier in the software to do such and then just take it out. So sounds like it's fairly easy. Okay, so the electric meters, all of the electric meters will have a remote shut off, which means that we don't have to go to the houses and pull meters. If for non-payment, we can disconnect from our desk. And the difference was $51, which not too bad. As you can see, the water meters are a lot different. So the difference between the remote shut off and regular was $348 each. So we chose to order 210, and they will be placed in high turnover, like rentals. Pretty much the rentals are the high turnover. And then this will also, utility office right now, if people are moving over the weekend, they have to pick Friday or Monday. If it's a holiday, pick Friday or Tuesday or whatever to switch those utilities. We can now capture up to 120 days of past hourly reads, so we can be a little bit even more customer friendly. And we can, if they want to move it Saturday at noon, we can grab Saturday at noon. Okay, so customer service. So once we're sure that the reads are flowing to billing correctly is when we will put up the customer portal. The customer portal has a lot of features. A couple of the features are they'll be able to view their usages within past 24 hours or longer. And they can set parameters to be signaled if their usage exceeds their average for specific time frame. They can, if they say, all right, I usually use 3 units of water, ping me when I use 4, or something like that. Staff will have the capability of viewing customer meter activity in near time. But if we are talking to a customer, we can at least see, they can see, like, within the past 24 hours, we would be able to view the same and be on the same page and know what we're talking about. So that's very helpful, especially with water usage when they have a leak. It's very helpful that we will be able to say, well, we can see where you used water continually all night long, which is a sign that you have maybe a toilet running or something. So alarms will notify staff of meter tampering, low battery, customer leak, reverse flow, high flow. And right now we do call customers to alert when we think that there could be an issue with high water. Just the sooner they know, they can get it fixed and not have this horrible bill. And so this will be even better. We'll know because we'll have that alert. And we will continue to call because not everyone we know will set up the portal account. We also will have alarm to let us know that maybe someone has tried to remove their meter to avoid water theft. And then when we have electric outages, it will show all the meters that are out, which is very helpful to kind of have a feel of what's going on when we get those multiple calls. And that we will, and we'll know that the line guys can see the same thing. So we're not having to radio and, hey, this person's out as well. We know, yes, it is a large outage when people call. Okay, so I might need help from Dan, I'm not sure. So this is some of the shots from the portal. So this one, I believe, is just showing us the weather. So we know, like, for kilowatts it used, what was the weather during that period, which, when you bill 30 days behind, when it was 90 degrees a month ago, you kind of, sometimes you forget that we have the air on for a whole week straight. That's why we use so much kilowatts. So this is helpful for the customer to actually see those. And so I'm guessing we can go up to 12 months.
Yep.
On that, so.
Right.
Okay, the next one, I think this is lots of information. So we have the first one is the current, so you can compare current last month, last year. The billing, I believe the second one, the billing, the water usage estimates and electric usage estimates, we would just need to put in our rates. And then a person can get on and see, okay, today my bill is going to be this amount. Notifications, which we can put any kind of notifications on there. It doesn't have to be related to utilities, just another way for social media to get the word out for something. The alerts would just shows how many times and what the alerts have been to that customer. And then I'm not sure what the outdoor watering.
I think that would be like something that you're pushing to your customers. You can do your Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can do your watering, so it's kind of a public address.
Okay.
So these are little tiles, you can, you what are there, 6 of them up there, you could have 6 of them, you could have 4 of them, you guys can kind of. Once we get your hands on it, you guys can kind of move those around and see what best fits for Webster City.
Okay. Would the customer be able to also pick and
I think
choose?
they'll get some of your, they probably, if you want notifications, they probably cannot take that off. There'll be some that are gonna be hard coded in there. Some people may not want their alerts or the billing, they just want maybe just some of the generic information, so they can kind of choose on that.
And then this one shows the different alerts that customer might want to put in. So this is our current utility bill. So I get the 2 that's in red and highlighted in yellow, that's the route number. And so whatever, so if it's a 2, it's route 2, if it's 11, it's route 11. So the number before the first decimal is what route it is. I'm really not sure what the 6-digit number is, but then the 2 numbers after the decimal is how many times that meter's changed. So on a new customer, it would be 00, changed out to the next person at 01, 44, we've had 44 different customers at that particular address.
Gotcha.
So then, like this one, you can see that the billing was from June 22nd to July 24th, which gives pretty good indication too. So okay, maybe it's a few more days than normal. And then there to the 1 unit of water is the 750 gallons because we're still billing in cubic feet, which we will change that. And on the portal, we can also have something that will convert it for them. So if they say, okay, I have this 10, what does that mean in gallons? These are nice, colorful routes, made my Deidre. So, and on the routes, we're just going to try to, when we do the change outs, hopefully we can, route 11 is maybe a little bit newer addition, newer homes, maybe the likelihood of having a home without shut off inside is less likely just due to plumbing codes and whatnot. So if we have them in the winter, that's my hope is that we can start on maybe like an area like that, just in case if we have 6 inches of snow and we have frozen ground to thaw out to get to a curb shut off. All right. Well, I don't think that this is back to you, right?
When this happens,
When?
no, it's the next page. Mine's upside down.
So we got, as of this afternoon, an update on the electrical meter being delivered. Looking like a little bit more into early November now. But once we get them, we'll break out into tags or teams of 2 and go out and start on specific routes. And well, we went through it earlier, but we'll document the information off of each meter and give it back to City Hall utility office. I think. So a lot of, well, the water meters will get taken care of with HydroCorp, but we still have a lot of electric meters inside the homes. That will take the scheduling. What our plan is to go to each address, knock on the door the day that we're there. They're already gonna have prior knowledge of us coming, but we'll knock on the door, tell them that we're there to change out their meter. Hopefully let us in at that time and get it taken care of at that time. Starting more that the door hangers are gonna be going on the doors too. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. Some today, okay.
Well, we should have a fairly good idea of how many we got inside the house. By the time we finish this, we'll know exactly how many we got inside.
Yes.
Because we probably, I mean, I'm surprised there's still so many.
Tony just said 411.
That are still in.
And we, you know, that,
It was a lot better than I thought.
yeah, but still, I mean, but you know, it's been, since I've been here, I think it's been 5, you've had the 5.
Yeah, and I'm working with a couple residents right now that are doing it, but yeah, still it never happened as much as I was hoping it would. But it's an expense.
Maybe it's something we should encourage, so at least we'll know the 400.
Well, and the contractors know, the electrical contractors know that when they're talking to a homeowner that is wanting to redo their electrical service, that the city is offering a $500 rebate if you're moving the meter from the outside or from the inside out.
Yeah.
So. Guess I touched on that, the installation. So. There's a few items here that we've listed as far as things that could happen at individual houses, meters. So this is the meter socket as you're looking at it without a meter in it. Some of the older meter bases. You go to pull the meter and a lug breaks. That's when you have an issue. It's a safety issue. You get a fireball right there in your face. And so we want to not have that happen. We've taken some safety precautions with our PPE, and we've got some other stuff that we're looking into to get here for when we're doing this mass throwout of all these new electric meters. So if we do find one that we lose or that parts break, we do have some parts that in-house that we can fix the problem, hopefully. We've got a licensed electrician on staff that would be able to come in and rectify the problem if need be. Alternative, no parts, we hire an electrician and they come and fix the meter. Another thing that could happen, meter base pulls loose from the house. It's gonna happen. Just hopefully keep it to a minimum, and staff, we do it anyway, we'll reattach it to the house. Unless there's something else that needs to be addressed, we'll have to get with the homeowner and cross that bridge when it comes. Electric meter may break while either disconnecting or reconnecting the meter. And that, when I'm talking like that, it's either the glass cover on the older meters that we will be pulling out, or sometimes with the newer ones, the plastic. You get jaws that are tight on a meter base and you're trying to get that meter installed and the plastic breaks. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but it does. And then electric meter base not accessible. This is the one that kind of concerns me. Yes, there is some electric meters outside that are outside of homes that may be tough to get to. But the ones that are inside are the ones that are my concern with everything you can imagine in basements of homes. So that's one that I'm not looking forward to. But we'll obviously have to make contact with the homeowner. Let them know that we were not able to gain access. And the employees couldn't safely change out the electric meter. You have 48 hours to rectify the problem, so staff can come back and install the meter.
Will those that have them outside have a general idea when you guys will be doing them?
Yep.
But we don't have a German Shepherd biting you in the back.
Yep, and what we're planning, I said it earlier, but when we get to a homeowner on property, we'll knock on the door. And they're already gonna have a notice like the week before that we were coming the following week to do this work. The door hangers are started, a mass communication on Facebook and everything else on social media, so they're gonna have knowledge of it. It's just hopefully our people listen to what we want to get addressed and we can get in, get these things taken care of.
Does someone need to be home when you guys change it out?
Pardon?
Does somebody need to be home when you guys change it out?
Only for access into the house.
Okay.
Outside, no. And the outage would be, it's gonna be very, very short time, very short.
Water meter, more likely.
Water meter will be, yeah, most definitely.
Wait a minute.
You wanna touch on the water part?
I don't remember this, but this is just.
The hydrocorp. How with the water meter exchange or. Maybe Dan can explain the best.
There you go.
All right, so yeah, so the install team, we've had one or two kind of preliminary meetings with them as far as kind of what their staging. Deployment is and how they are gonna, go about and set up I believe they're gonna kind of set up their own portal that customers can then go on and pick their date. So that they are, choosing kind of their best available. Also, they have, I think here, probably about a month or 2 months before we know restarting, which we have a January 8th date. They will send out postcards to the customers, again, just giving them information. And I believe in that letter, they also state who the people are and that they will be identified with some type of labeling or a tag. Water customers can call, make their appointments or do it online. The appointments confirm, and then they'll try to stagger them within 30 minutes so that they can be at one customer, get that taken care of and move on. When we did the meeting, did they say 50 a day, 30 a day? So like in a month, it's 500 something, right?
20 or 30 a day and what they're hoping.
Yeah. I can't do that. Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the.
That doesn't mean there'll be a number provided that is to the hydrocorp office itself.
Yeah, these guys, city staff won't be doing any of the scheduling. That's all done through hydrocorp. Also probably in that letter or also on maybe when they sign up for their appointment. If it is in the back corner where all the Christmas decorations are, try to give them like Adam's saying, some accessibility to the water meter. Water meter, the water will be shut off. Roughly they just estimate about 30 minutes. And that all depends on what hopefully they just have that easy shut off. They can do that, take the meter out, put the new meter in. 30 minutes, I'd say, is on the long side of that. They also will, Hydrocorp will take a picture of the area. They'll take a picture of, after install, before install of the meter reading. So all that information can come back here. Everything will be documented with pictures. So nobody, if anybody comes back, they'll be able to bring up their address and say, this is what your meter reading was the day they took it out. And it's just a way for everybody to kind of be protected and know exactly what's going on. Yeah, and then they'll just take those old, take the old meters, we're gonna stage those back at the water plant.
And what they will also do is help determine the service line coming in, which will help with lead line services and whatnot, or potential. To help.
October 24, DNR has the requirement that you guys have to know what all services are, so they are gonna be in your house, they're gonna be in the houses, so they're gonna be able to have that documented. And then they're giving it to Ben or to Nick to put into the DNR report. So it's serving two purposes, an easy way now to get access into somebody's house and get their water meter changed.
I need to get in and check to make sure my valves work.
We all do.
Gonna have to spray some WD-40 or something.
Okay, so, yeah, we're encouraging homeowners to check their valves prior to making an appointment. One of the reasons we're doing this, door hangers now, especially people that maybe need help in financing, if they do have a problem, that, Ariel will be talking about some different programs that, but to come in there today and, hey, you need this fixed. It's a little time consuming, so that we really want people to be checking everything out right now. If valves do need replacement or repair, they need to contact a plumber. And then also we will, if they're insured, they can call inspection department for a free inspection. So if the meter cannot be changed at the time scheduled appointment, a $90 rescheduling fee will be assessed to the property owner. Appointment will take 30 to 45 minutes. Appointments for the water meter installation must be scheduled through the approved contractor. And then the city hall will also have a station set up for individuals needing assistance. So the contractor installing the meters will not attempt to shut off valves inside the home that are corroded, which, like the picture here. Or if they feel that if it just appears that if they turn it, it's going to break, they have said that they're not going to touch it. The city can then attempt to shut off the water at the curb and proceed with the change out. If the curb stop cannot be located, or appears to have an issue, or it's going to break, or sometimes we just can't get on it and get it turned, and we do have several different wrenches to try, but sometimes we just can't. Then we'll have well, okay, so we'll go to this one next. So $35. Typically, if you want your curb box located and turned on and off, we charge $35 for just the attempt. We will waive that because this is our project that we want done. So if we cannot get the water shut off at the curb, tell the homeowner they have 21 days to repair the inside valves. If the water line is copper, it can be frozen to replace the meter for an extra charge. Do you want this option to be offered in place of the 21 days replacing? Well, since then, Deidre and I received an email today from John, who's the director of meter division of HydroCorp. Not really wanting us to freeze needs to be a very last resort. He said that you need 12 inches of straight service line. It can only be copper. And then if there's a small leak, the line will not freeze. If freezing in a crawl space is not an option because it's serious risk to the installer. So in saying that, I don't know if
Shouldn't be an option.
If we really, yeah.
it sounds like it's a pretty minimum thing you can do.
Right. If the customer refuses to make the requested repair, a meter inconvenience fee will be assessed to their utility bill. I did put that, 75 to 90, but I think we have decided on 90. However, I did send an attorney with Allers, who is very familiar with IUB, asking them several questions. He has not gotten back to me yet. Just making sure that we can charge this fee on the electric. If a person decides not to pay that fee, can we disconnect or not? And maybe if there's another suggestion that they would have for us. And then in addition, the city can hire a contractor to make the repair and assess back to the property owner via mechanics lien, and that is where our on-call plumber will come in that the risk working on. If that's the approach that, again, that y'all would want to do. And then if so if they don't make the repair or they refuse to let us in to change out the meter, we would also charge that $90 fee. And the we still need to roll a truck, and we're gonna have to have somebody go and manually. We're gonna have to have people that keep track of which meters aren't being pulled in by the new system. We have meter reading equipment that we might need to use, and do we still need to keep maintenance on those? And after so many years, the maintenance agreements are obsolete and they won't. So we have the $90 does cover different costs that we. And so then I just so this is the form I made up for freezing, so I think we can just get that out there.
Okay, I'll be kind of quick on this. So this is the financial assistance opportunities that homeowners would qualify for. I also have a few commercial opportunities in here as well. So the first one is the USDA 504 loan. So with all of these different programs, one of the biggest things to highlight is that they must be the property owner and occupy the home. So it can't be rental housing. It has to be the actual homeowner's property that they're living in. For this specific loan, they must be unable to obtain affordable credit elsewhere. They have the different family income limits listed there. They do go up over 9, but up over 8, but I just have 1 to 4, 5 to 8 listed there. These will likely change as of January 1, 2024, and that's for all of the income limits on all of these programs that I'm about to speak about. These loans can be approved within a week with proper form submittal. So that's, of course, if they're getting all of their stuff submitted that first day, they can be approved within a week. If they're, intermittently submitting different documents, it's going to take longer for those to be approved or decisioned. Maximum loan amount is $40,000. This would be paid back over 20 years at 1%. It only requires one bid from the property owner, or that the property owner is comfortable with the amount. We do have additional entities willing to assist with completing applications. So the USDA office that services Hamilton County is actually in Humboldt. So the representative there is willing to allow people to come to her office or set up a time to actually meet here in Webster City as well. And the applications can be picked up at City Hall. The next one is the USDA 504 grant. So this is for somebody who's age 62 or older and may not be able to repay a loan. Again, I have the family sizes listed there, and again, these increase to 8 or more with increasing with the number of family members. Again, these can be approved within a week with proper form submittal. Grants must be repaid only if the property is sold within 3 years or in less than 3 years. And again, only requires one bid that the property owner is comfortable with. And again, the application can be picked up in Webster or at City Hall. Part of Iowa Regional Housing Trust Fund. So this is the program that I spoke about in the general agenda for council meeting. Again, must be owner occupied single family homes. And these Priority is given to anyone with an income at or below 30% average median income. The family size is listed there again. Also available for households with income at or below 50% average median income. This is up to $15,000. And at the 5-year forgivable loan, 20% is forgiven each year. So it's just if you sell your house within that 5 years, obviously 20% it would be decreased each year. 0% interest. This one does require 3 bids though, so that sometimes can be a little bit more challenging. So I would recommend the USDA 504 loan first, since it only requires 1 bid. Again, applications can be picked up at City Hall. This is a proposed LMI funded program that I've put together, looking for your guys's approval on allocating $50,000 of LMI funds. I have stipulations here again, must be owner occupied single family homes, and then this would require the family income to be below 80% AMI. I have the family sizes listed there again. These are released each year based on the county, so these aren't just numbers that I'm pulling out, they're based off of what data shows. Again, I have it listed that they must be unable to obtain affordable credit elsewhere. And then I have it would be a 0% loan paid back according to the amount and term. So I have the first amount being $500 paid back within 12 months. This would make the monthly payment roughly $41.67. And then I have $1,000 to $1,500 within 18 months, $55.56 to $83.33, $1,500 to $2,000 paid back within 24 months, $62.50 to $83.33. $2,000 to $2,500 paid back within 30 months, monthly payment between $66.67 and $83.33, and then $2,500 or more would require special consideration by city staff. So the main goal with the different terms for the amounts is to keep an affordable payment each month for individuals with that lower income. So applications would be available here at City Hall as well.
Okay, PFM has recommended that the city revisit water rates soon based on the current conditions, and I'm saying that because we're gonna go on and talk about the different city financing. So in 2017, we did an annual street project on Nancy Lane where we replaced water and sewer mains. And we offered the homeowners on that block to pay, it depended on which side you were on, but if you wanted to replace your sewer line at that time, we paid the contractor, and then if they had good credit with the city, they could take 18 months to pay us back. 0%. But the fund that the utility that was being updated is who financed this. So in this case, of course, it would be water. That's why we have that to begin with. The water is really not in the best shape right now. So we only had 2 people that took us up on it on the payment anyway. And they had to put a 10% deposit, 18-month interest. Good credit to us at that time was no more than 1 light payment in a 12-month period, which is the requirement that we used to be placed on the summer sewer program. However, we could say no delivery slips in the 12-month period. You can still be late, but to get a delivery slip, you have to be 3 weeks delinquent. And you're also mailed a reminder. So we feel that you have ample time to have paid that bill, or contact us. If you contact us and say, I promise to pay, I can't pay here, but I can pay in a week, and we put the promise in, you won't get the delivery slip either. So, and then if we want a specific time frame of history to measure this, if they're a newer account, would we want to use the letter of credit that we use to waive the deposit? However, that letter of credit would be based on the first one of no more than 1 late payment 12-month period. And then would we want to cap the amount we loan and cap the amount we have available? But this is a summary of our cash projection for the water. These estimates are based on last year's budget. And I used the ending cash balance from the water fund at the end of fiscal 23, which was the 1,292,121. And obviously, we're going to have to bond to meet the improvement needs, and water rates are also going to have to be evaluated regardless, because it's just not in good shape. So I just wanted you to know all that prior to making, do we want to offer that for the city? And if so, more than likely, we would also need to make an internal, we would have to have another fund borrow the money to the water fund.
It's gonna be difficult to establish a loan per fund source out of the water fund. Not something I would think. I wouldn't recommend it right now. If you really want to do it, we can be shuffling some monies and borrowing from other funds to establish this loan, but we wouldn't recommend at this time to do that right now.
Yeah, I don't think. I think you've got, with what Ariel put up. Taking care of the LMI people, I mean. I guess we can see how many you end up getting. We can revisit it then, but otherwise it's, it's your fund isn't in a good.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
just
it's
Really quick one.
been the electric side would be fine.
Obviously, this is a project that's encompassing both residential and commercial buildings. So these are just the 3 different funding options that are available for the city, commercial properties. So we have the city revolving loan fund, the chamber also has a revolving loan fund, and then both of these applications, can be picked up at city.
Have you guys all read this?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is just some helpful information about the meter replacement, whether it be water or electric. There are no fees associated to the customer for this exchange. As far as getting inside the home, Adam had mentioned about needing somebody 18 years or older to be present. And as far as the frequency or how it reads, Adam's like, is it cellular? No, it's a radio frequency. So people might have concern about that as far as, but like someone had mentioned, as they're heating up their coffee in their microwave and talking on their cell phone, there's no more frequency than doing either of those as well. So there should be no concern.
The Russians are gonna shut the water.
Yes. Then also asking, when whether it be us or Hydrocoke needs to have all pets, contained. We are reaching out as far as wanting people to have clear access with their water valves to try and prevent any of this. I think our staff has came up with some wonderful ideas to help these residents in this situation. It's not an option, so to speak, to opt out of either one of these changes. If that is something that comes across, and there's that meter inconvenience fee that she is looking into doing that as well. Once again, if they get there to, I'm thinking Hydrocorp to switch out and find that things are bad. I believe that they actually give us basically 3 strikes and you're out. Then it goes back to the city's responsibility to switch that out. So we're trying to avoid that at all costs.
If you had if you get some single women, or people that can't really go down and look at their own stuff to make sure the valves go on and off. Is that something we should?
That is something, it is in our deal. If they have any questions, I
I
really
mean,
think
you know, like-
about,
Then we could send someone down there to
We-
move it up and.
we're posting it actually on our door hangers today,
Yeah.
tomorrow. They can call, City Hall and we will get our inspection team to go down, look at it. Do you need this? Do you not?
Yeah, because that way we'd know in advance.
Wouldn't even know.
No. Well, it's easy enough for me to go down and look at mine, but there are people down that
That don't know.
they wouldn't even know what, they wouldn't even know what to find it.
Basement.
Yeah.
Understand all of them. So that's why we're being proactive, starting getting those flyers out. We're also gonna have a community
A fair bit of time. So.
to, and, eliminate any of those.
Well,
We entered into agreement with Municipal Supply back in April of 23. Then we ordered 3,893 water meters. And in June, we ordered 4,635 electric meters. As Adam mentioned earlier, we were notified today that our first round of electric meters that we thought would be here in October is looking like the first part of November now. And that's okay. We are going through as far as scheduling the appointments. My intention is with the meter readers are identifying which meters are located inside the homes and reporting that back. And then my goal is to schedule those based on the least amount of inside on those, my rainbow map by the route, trying to get those routes kicked out first. So what we're trying to tie the many equations into that. And water meters will be similar also. Most likely they will start with in the newer sections. So we don't have the script, with the many problems trying to get the best out. Skip that, if I could. Back in July, this particular flyer went out. What I was looking for here is kind of give them a briefing about what's to come up, but also wanting customers to, do we have their current information? I know from being in the utility office many times that, people have eliminated their home phones, but they've lived here for 50 years. They haven't updated us that.
Haven't told you they have a cell phone.
Yeah, so looking for that, and actually 43 people updated that on our website. And another 140 were physically brought in and updated. So not great, but we're trying everything. Also at the top of that flyer mentioned about Adam's meter change out plan with the assistance with the $500 for that. The next one is a flyer that is going out in the bills. Well, actually September, so I believe they just billed last Friday, and then we'll go out again on the 25th, which is a really good day. It's our birthday. And it's a community forum, that's what I was getting at. Let's see, sorry, and on this particular flyer that is going out in September does have both English and Spanish on that one. And then these are examples of the door hangers that are going out this week. Really want to emphasize to the public, if they got questions on this, bring them to the table. Let's talk about it. Let's clear any misconceptions up.
We need to get conversations going early.
Yeah, let's eliminate those headaches before they become. As I mentioned on the back, it just kind of, our plan at the time that we ordered these was in October, but they will be. And then the different valves, you know, are they looking there? And it also mentions that the city's inspection department will inspect your pipes free of charge. So what they need to do is just call into our public works director. We're working with Nick. Ariel must have left. As far as kind of setting us a block of times and working with Ann and Ashley, so we're all got that going.
Apparently, we're gonna have to go and look at ours, we can call it.
You are correct. You have
It's got a clear.
the cable, there will be a fee associated.
It has a light in there now. It has since I moved there 23 years ago. Didn't use.
Hopefully we are able to reach out. I have included in the packet my next flyer that I'm gonna do a mass mailing with. I believe it was in mid-October. Talking about the hydroport pen and getting people prepped up, was constantly reaching out. We also do have Darcy on board, getting us a link on our website, updates. So when we do try and go in those.
Blast on Facebook or something.
Yeah. And then so no negative comments are allowed. And I know, right? So when we do attempt to go schedule out, I'd like to, you know, identify those areas. Okay, by your route. We're looking at scheduling route 5 in this time. So people we may not be focused in, but we'll have a general idea of our goals. And that'll just continue to grow and work itself out as we progress with the process. So, any questions so far? Good. Daniel?
All right, I'll close it out. So we briefly touched this earlier, but the final part of this is as mentioned, there is a lead and copper roll that we have to do an inventory of our service lines throughout the community. And so part of the technicians, as they replace water meters, is going to be assessing what the pipes are, whether they're lead, non-lead, copper, whatever those are. That information will be shared with our GIS and environmental staff. We'll put together the inventory needed to submit to the DNR. One of the key questions that kind of came up or just recently was from the Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities was we possibly will also have to send notifications to homeowners as to what those pipes are. Or we're trying to confirm if they're lead, what to notify them. We're not clear yet if there's any requirement that they have to be replaced, so we're checking on that. Part of what the GIS staff has done so far is kind of create this heat map based off of both the age of structures, building permits, any updated information to determine what areas of the community would be a higher risk, medium risk, and no risk in terms of the potential to find lead service lines. So they've updated that and provided this information for us to kind of be able to go off of and work during the process. And lastly, the AMI project is to provide a large amounts of information related to people's services for electric and water, and all that's going to be updated with throughout the various systems we have. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So is there any questions we can address? The main part of us giving this overview is this is going to be a very large, a very complex, a very invasive at times process for residents. We wanted to try to give you as much information early on before we get into the work to one, kick off this information piece of it, but also what questions you may have or that we should foresee, any suggestions or recommendations that we should adapt in our process that you come to mind.
Is this going to be, are you going to get a little alarmed when my water bill really goes up in the summertime? Because I've been called more than once by the city saying, you got a leak someplace. Well, we use a lot of water. And with the swimming pool, and now my wife likes to water all her plants. So, I would say right now, I was looking at it last month, it doubled what it was last year.
Does she call it? Oh, you don't have a sewer thing, so you can't call him.
You don't try to do that. You tried that once before too. I said, oh my God, we don't have any sewer charge here for you. I said, you better not have.
Well, if you did, you see, you could get a reduction on your water bill, but you can't because you're. Don't have a sewer.
The meter on the hydrant out by the pool so that we can get water cheaper.
Ah,
Or not have to even get a big tank and go to Wolfville.
yeah.
Wait, doesn't she know that water and flower is best with rainwater?
Deep water and water.
You get out of the creek and get you.
Yeah, well, the system will have some features and capabilities for detecting leak. Actually, once you get set up with the online portal, it actually contact you or message you automatically versus.
I'm not concerned. I've been pretty happy about it, so
You just like us to call you. You like to hear.
Swear.
Any other piece of information or?
I think it's a super project. I really do.
I think
I do too.
I think we should let the people know they got lead pipes. The earlier they seem to know, the better. I mean, because eventually we're gonna have to go back and do them, aren't we? Because isn't that the next piece of this? Is they're gonna force us to go and do everybody? So
That's likely word.
I think they're gonna give us money for it.
They won't.
Force you to replace theirs.
If we were Flint, Michigan, we'd get money.
It seems like I think the long-term goal of the EPA is to see all lead service lines removed from.
Sure, but it'd be city's responsibility to replace them.
That's what they're doing.
Holy cow, talk
Yeah.
about an expense.
I mean, the only thing you can hope is that, well, but mind you, I mean, businesses, we have businesses, everything up in Second Street, you can see, you don't know who's got it.
I think Milwaukee has had a complete program to replace service lines. Just because they have so many of them and fearful that was going to be mandated, they wanted to jump ahead. So how they're financing it, I'm not exactly sure, but that's the goal. All right, well, lastly, yeah. Colorado got its first snow this past weekend, so
I'm gonna do it, Jared.
Second.
Well, everybody say, all right,
Bye.
thank you, everybody.
Who determines that the cemetery is medium risk for wetlands?
One of you were buried with a lead wire.